you are horrified when I would tie the word craft to the humanities enterprise. But think about it. One of the greatest lessons of studying or writing poetry is a painful labor that goes into picking a word, the right word, or a verse form, or a simile, or a metaphor, and then working within it. Writing poetry or fiction is hard work with multiple revisions, perfection being the goal. Poetry isn't the only area in the humanities with this craft element. Theater noticeably includes acting, memorizing, set designing, projecting, lighting, staging, costuming, all of which have to be worked on, perfected, and held together for several performances, sometimes under chaotic conditions. Philosophy also has a huge and important element of craft. Theorizing and systematizing in a non-empirical fashion involves enormous work over time, drafts, articles, and then books. John Rawls spent years generating his political theory. I wanted to start my argument for the humanities with this craft element because I think it is too much overlooked by defenders who construct accounts focused on the great aesthetic or humanistic appeal of many works of the humanities. But my second argument is for me even more significant. The humanities frequently involve representations of and efforts to articulate human value proposition. In Caesar's Commentare de Bello Gallico, interesting solely because it is in Latin, or is it interesting because it is about war, savagery, human ambition, pretension, aggression, valor, and many other things? Is Dickens interesting because he is a great writer who can cover the gamut of places and people in a torrent of prose, or is he interesting because at every turn there are questions and issues of human value that we confront in our own lives and therefore we love to encounter in his novels? Is Shakespeare solely or even mainly interesting because he's a great poet, playwright, or also because we meet Prince Hal, Rosalind, Macbeth, Lear, Goneril, Cordelia, Hamlet, Polonius, themselves running the gamut of people who are noble, venal, weak, hilarious, introverted, fun, despicable, or greedy? Now, philosophy and religion attempt to organize systems of value propositions, not just fleeting insights. But isn't the heart of a religion or of any philosophical system like Christianity not absolute value propositions, but rather statements of great moral attractiveness, like the Sermon on the Mount, which are not closed-end behavioral rules so much as statements of moral aspiration? And those aspirations are conveyed with great force in the context of the literature, art, and theater that present them. Third, I think the humanities are centrally important because they give an unparalleled and unrivaled view up close of the human condition, hence the word humanities. It is valuable that we have courses on topics like social deviance in sociology, but the humanities can present in a single work or even a page deviance, conformity, isolation, group identity, etc., all packed in infinitely modulated and frequently constructed packages of the human imagination. And as I said a few moments ago, the view is up close. A great novel about a murder is not as staid as a chart showing the number of murders in Iowa, but as vivid as a knife plunging before you into someone's back on a stage or in prose. The humanities do not categorize human tragedies, their frequency, causes, etc., but they can show you vivid tableaus involving, for instance, Hamlet, struggling with a dreadful step-parent, a weak father, an introverted constitution, his own youth and inexperience. I have not said much about history, one of my own fields, but the classic form of narrative history, Gibbon being an example, tied together important facts of Roman decline with explanations of moral debauchery, excessive wealth, and human weakness. We may not like Gibbon or Macaulay or Ronald Syme or agree with them or their explanations, but their writings present a position that educates even by repelling us. Recent historiography has in some cases swung over to the social science model, and to that extent is less of a humanity, but still the narrative voice is very strong and causes and effects prominently argued over. It is also worthwhile to note that the empirical and social science or aspect of history is itself in aid of the notion of truth, which serves as a corrective or antidote to some claims in the humanities of injustice or other truths which turn out to be themselves false. Fourth, the humanities touch on humanity and human phenomena in a seemingly disorganized and almost haphazard but close-up way, as in life. Social sciences describe family disintegration in terms of other families that disintegrate similarly. But each family disintegration is necessarily different because the important components are variable. Someone is sick, someone is unstable, someone has lost a job. The circumstances of living are awful. The humanities show us this variability better than the sciences or the social sciences. Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf makes for me a deeper impression than an analysis of trends in collapsing marriages. This does not mean that we should not study marital issues and other social phenomena in a disciplined way, but it does mean that empirical studies cannot and should not supplant the humanities totally as ways of learning and understanding, particularly about the very complex chemistry of human relations. A recent work of historical fiction, which I'm reading, Hilary Mantel's Man Booker Prize-winning book, Wolf Hall, illustrates this. Thomas Cromwell has almost universally been vilified by historians as first Cardinal Wolsey's toady, and then as Henry VIII's self-aggrandizing thug. In Wolf Hall, Hilary Mantel challenges these vilifications in her novel by constructing a version of Cromwell consistent with the historical sources as a friend to women, to the economic middling sort, and to a non-hierarchical ordering in society. Fifth, and here I'm going to have to tread carefully, the humanities give great latitude. Indeed, they are built on an unlimited human imagination. Andrew Marvell writes with great charm, "Had we but whirled enough in time, this coyness lady were no crime," referring to his beloved's non-responsiveness. I am treading lightly on the identification of imagination with the humanities because I believe human imagination is a critical element in the sciences and the social sciences as well. But I do believe that the quotient of imagination, or to be mathematical, the numerator of imagination over the denominator of work, is typically higher in the humanities. No one coerced Jane Austen into writing novels about the liberating and enslaving aspects of social conventions. She built her novels around her understanding and imagination of these conventions and of people who might interact, subvert, uphold, or outwit them. Let me close this section of my convocation on the great value of the humanities by adding one cautionary note of particular worth at a college which encourages breadth in curricular selections over 4 years. The quality and understanding of almost all the humanities increases exponentially as in-depth, not just broad, study, including across the discipline of the same period, is pursued. Thus, curricular depth is an important element for developing skill and understanding of the humanities. Continental philosophy benefits from parallel study of other philosophical systems, but also of German history and German religious development. The study of the glories of the English novel of the 19th century are enhanced by a study of English history. Russian and Arabic are understood in relation to both regional history, but also religious evolution and development. Depth can often be in conflict with breadth. In my senior year in college, I took a course in Chinese literature and translation. It was way beyond my core focus academically, but of course, in retrospect, it was an important broadening of my study into a major non-Western literature.